All right, let's get right into it. In less than 24 hours, this fragile truce between the US and Iran, it's over. And what happens next? Well, it could literally change everything. We're going to break down exactly how we got here, to the very edge of the cliff.
And look, you need to understand, this is not just some political bluffing. This isn't posturing. The deadline is real. This is the final countdown. Diplomacy hasn't just failed, it's completely shattered. Both sides are digging in. They're preparing for the absolute worst, and that clock, it's ticking.
So that clock you see, it hit zero on April 22, 2026. That's the exact moment this 2-week ceasefire, the one that was brokered back on April 8th, just evaporates. It was supposed to be a lifeline, a chance to end this thing. But right now, there is absolutely nothing in its place. Nothing to stop what's coming.
So, what are the leaders saying in these last incredibly tense hours? Well, the stuff coming out of Washington is, honestly, it's a confusing and frankly terrifying mix. It's like one minute they're threatening war and the next they're talking about a peace deal.
And listen to this. This is President Trump himself, in his own words. A reporter asked him, plain and simple, what happens if this ceasefire ends? His answer was just chilling. He just said, then lots of bombs start going off. He's even told reporters he is, and I'm quoting here, ready to go. And he is making absolutely sure the world hears him loud and clear. Get this, in a crazy flurry of activity, he's posted on Truth Social a staggering 39 times. 39! Just doubling down again and again on the threats, praising Israel as a great ally. The message couldn't be clearer, right? The military option is very much on the table. Okay, but then, and this is where you get total whiplash, in practically the same breath, the president tells Fox News that a deal is right around the corner. He says it's going to be signed in Pakistan and that his top guy, Vice President J.D. Vance, is leading the team and they're on their way. So, which is it? Are we getting a peace deal or all-out war? It's impossible to tell.
Okay, so to really get why this whole ceasefire is crumbling, you have to look at one specific place. It's probably the most critical waterway on the entire planet. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. It has become the absolute flashpoint for this entire crisis.
And this timeline? Wow, it just perfectly shows how unbelievably fast everything fell apart. So April 17th, Iran says, hey, the strait is completely open. This was huge. It looked like de-escalation. But on the exact same day, the US comes out and says, nope, our naval blockade is staying right where it is. Well, Iran saw that as a total deal breaker. By April 19th, they'd completely reversed course and shut the strait down again. And then, not even a day later, Iranian Revolutionary Guard gunboats opened fire on a tanker. Just like that, in less than 48 hours, any hope for peace was gone.
So what happens when the world's most important oil choke point basically becomes a war zone? You guessed it, the global markets freaked out instantly. Oil prices just shot through the roof. We're talking West Texas Intermediate jumping over 5% and Brent crude right behind it. I mean, that's the immediate cost you pay for failed diplomacy, right there in your gas prices.
But we can talk all day about oil prices and naval blockades, but the real cost, the truly devastating cost of all this, is the human one. And it feels like that's being completely lost in the noise.
Because at the end of the day, the real price of this war isn't measured in dollars per barrel. It's measured in human lives. The human rights activist news agency has been tracking this, and their latest number is at least 3,636 people have been killed so far. Just let that number sink in for a second. It's absolutely staggering.
And here's the part that's just devastating. Among those killed are at least 254 children. 254. We're talking about entire families being ripped apart, futures just wiped out in an instant. This is the brutal, horrible reality of what's happening on the ground. And this war has also thrown Iran's leadership into complete chaos. The very first strike killed the supreme leader, Khamenei. His son was named as the successor, but get this, he hasn't been seen in public even once. In fact, it's been weeks, and they still haven't held a funeral for the old leader. Why? Because they're terrified that any big public gathering would just become a target for an Israeli airstrike. The entire regime is essentially paralyzed by fear. So, with so much on the line, you'd think every diplomat on the planet would be working overtime, right? But no. Right now, it looks like diplomacy is completely dead in the water.
And here's why. It really boils down to this fundamental, uncrossable divide. On one side, you have the US demanding what is essentially a complete surrender. Washington wants to dismantle what it sees as a threat once and for all. But for Iran, even talking about a deal while under a naval blockade, That's just surrender by another name. They won't even come to the table until it's lifted. There's no middle ground to be found.
And we just got confirmation of this. Even though Pakistan is trying desperately to broker some kind of peace, Iran made its position crystal clear on state television this morning. They put out a statement saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, no delegation from Iran is going to Pakistan. So as far as Tehran is concerned, there's nothing left to talk about. The end.
So if the talking has stopped, what happens next? Well, the military movements we're seeing right now paint a pretty terrifying picture. We're talking about a massive, massive escalation.
3. Just think about that number for a second. That is the number of U.S. Navy carrier strike groups that are now deployed for what the Pentagon is calling Operation Epic Fury. I mean, this is an unbelievable concentration of military power in one place.
Okay, let's run through the list. You've got the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea, the USS Gerald R. Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean, and the USS George H.W. Bush is on its way. Now, each one of those isn't just a ship, it's the heart of a carrier strike group. Think of it like a floating military base with its own air force and an entire fleet of warships protecting it. And that's not all. They're being joined by 2 amphibious ready groups packed with thousands of Marines, plus parts of the 82nd Airborne. Let me be clear, this is not a force you send to scare someone. This is a force you send to start a war.
And it's not just the U.S. getting ready. Israel is also preparing to jump in. Reports are coming out of the Israeli newspaper Mariv saying there's tight coordination with the Americans, and if the fighting starts up again, the target list is going to get a lot bigger. They're talking about hitting Iran's critical energy facilities. An attack like that would absolutely cripple Iran's economy and blow this conflict wide open.
At this point, it's just foolish to think of this as some distant regional conflict. It's not. The global fallout is already starting to happen, and I think the whole world is holding its breath, just bracing for what comes next.
And here's why this should matter to you, no matter where you live. We're talking about completely disrupted energy supply chains. That's your gas prices. We're talking about a rising threat to food security because grain shipments can't get through. Major countries like India are already sounding the alarm about their ships being blocked. And the experts, they're warning that we're caught in this terrible loop now, a cycle of war and ceasefire, where each round just gets worse and more destructive than the last.
So, it all comes down to this one question. We are standing on the absolute edge of a cliff. Is some last-minute miracle deal going to pull us back from the brink, or are we all going to wake up tomorrow to the sound of bombs? The next 24 hours will decide everything.